Welcome to the video that I have promised for a little while now. I'm going to be showing you guys how to set your solid buckets versus the shimmed buckets in your JZ head. This is something that you really want to do if you're trying to do anything like relatively crazy with high horsepower, high limiter applications in your engines. Both of these cars have solid buckets in them, and this is the method that I used. This one has been cooking for about 5 years, and this one I just recently did just a couple months ago. But I'm going to be showing you guys exactly how I do this and the method that I used. Now, there's going to be some people that probably are going to say, that's incorrect, that's not the right way to do it, but there's multiple ways to get to the same answer. Obviously, the correct way would be to fill the whole head full, get your measurements, get the measurement of the bucket that you need, and then order the exact size. But if you're running on a budget, and it kind of sucks if you accidentally mismeasure something and then you get a bucket in that is not going to work, then you got to wait even longer. So this method just requires you to go to the junkyard, whatever, grab some buckets out of, and in most of the older Toyotas, and you can run measurements and they fit directly inside the cylinder head. If you guys are like me and you don't overthink things and you think about how simple everything actually is inside of an engine, then you will realize that the entire point of this bucket is so the cam lobe can ride against it, sits over the spring, and the little shim there sits on top of the valve, and that is what rests against to push the valve open. Some of the benefits to using this bucket over this bucket is the fact that this bucket here has a shim in the top. This one is solid, so the shim is actually in the base of it. This is what the actual valve sits against, and there's space from the base of the shim to the top of this. That is a fixed amount. On this one, this shim right here, you guys can probably see it moving around. This is possible to be kicked out. So during a high RPM run, the cam lobe could basically scoop this guy out of there, and this thing will be flying around inside your cylinder head, which is not good. Once you do that, then you do lose the ability to open the valve at all, and then you'll cause significant damage to the cam lobe after this kicks out. Don't get me started on what kind of damage this shim will cause floating around in the cylinder head. These are super good for the application of high horsepower and high RPM. If you guys look here, you can see that this one is a lot taller than this one. And something that I have noticed is that a lot of these buckets here from some of the 4-cylinder engines from Toyota and stuff, obviously these are a lot different than a JZ. A lot of these are actually just physically taller in general than the factory shimmed buckets. And the benefit to that is that you're actually able to shrink these. Instead of using shims to get the proper measurements, you will actually just trim the bottom of this little seat down here. The different ways that you can do this: you get your measurements, you trim the top of the valve, you buy a whole new bucket. That's the exact measurement, in which everybody will say that's the proper way to do it, but there's multiple ways to get to the same answer. Or you can do what I do: you get a whole set of these buckets, clean them up nice and fresh, and they fit perfectly inside here with no issues at all. You can trim that little seat there, and the way that I do that is using this little finger grinder. It fits perfectly inside there. You can take a little bit off the surface there, and then you can go and do a measurement on it once again. And you're going to use this micrometer here. This will actually sit inside just like that, and you'll be able to get the measurements. So on top of these buckets, you can see that I've done measurements already. This is because I have a whole bunch of these. I'll set them all out, I'll get the measurements, get the closest measurements I can per the recommendation from the cams that I'm going to be using. This cam in particular is a stock cam for this GE head, and I will be going based off the specs that BC wants. So I have BC cams on this, I have BC cams on this, and the measurements that it's recommending is a 0.006 on the intake side and 0.008 on the exhaust side. So 8 thousandths and 6 thousandths, which is not very much. And those spaces are the space between the bottom of the lobe and the top of the bucket. You do not want those to be in contact, especially when the lobe is facing directly up. You don't want those to be in contact, because if there is contact, this can be pressed open. There's a lot of expansion and everything when things get hot, so metal will expand, and if there's any closer distances than that, when everything gets hot, those things could be touching at the end, and then your valve will be stuck open. You will lose compression. At the end, you'll lose power. Not something that you want to do. So I'll be showing you guys exactly what you can do to get these measurements and how to set these up. Okay, in this head I actually pulled all the valves and everything out, so I will be installing a valve spring and a valve just in this front cylinder here, and show you guys exactly what I do to do that. There's multiple ways to get to the same answer, of course. I believe in that a lot. So what I do is I set this guy down in there. I'm going to make sure that the retainer has the keepers in there, and you want to make sure that the valve isn't going to be poking down. So what I typically do is I'll put a little rag up under there, make sure that the valve cannot come back down. And then I have this little tool here. It's called it's a Lyle tool. Works very good. Basically, the retainer sits against here, and then this is a spring in it that pushes the keepers. So when you push down hard enough, the valve will push against this, the spring will compress, and then once the spring compresses enough, then the keepers will slip around the retainer and go into the actual end of the valve. There's little keeper holders there for the valve. So, and because these are stock valves, it's extremely easy to do these. They don't have extreme tension. There's not a lot of pressure there, so got that valve installed now. Super easy to compress those. And so now what you want to do is you want to make sure that it's lubricated enough that it can slide up and down. These don't really do much but go up and down, but in between strokes and revolutions they do spin a little bit, so just make sure that your bucket walls are nice and smooth. You don't want to be sliding them in dry, you know. I like to set these to inches, so you don't want it to be in millimeter because then it's not in thousandths. You want to make sure that you're set in inches. And then obviously twist this guy all the way down, not super tight. Zero it out. And then you can go ahead and open this up enough to where you can slide one of the buckets in. And we'll use this one as an example here. You guys can see it. So it's 0.2145 thousandths. So it's basically 2/10 of an inch. And what you want to do is a little surface right down in there. You can see there's a reflection. You just want to set this guy up against there and just nice and firm, not super tight. 2.144 thousandths and a 5. So round up to the number here that I've got written on there. So since I got this number written on there already, it's not a big deal. I'll just leave it on there. But typically what I like to do is I will take my numbers that I've gotten, and you want to keep track of everything. You don't want to lose anything. So this is cylinder 1. Typically what I like to do is I'll do my buckets and then we'll get the measurement after the fact. So this one is 0.2145. Okay, so she's set. And then using the stock cam, we'll set the cam in here. Now this does get really repetitive because you do have to basically pull this on and off over and over and over again. I've noticed after some testing that I have gotten the same numbers even if I've only installed a couple of these cam caps. So I won't install all of them, and I do not fully torque them down because I've torqued them down and still got the same numbers. So you definitely want to make sure that you got the cam caps on either side of the bucket that you're going to be doing for sure. And if you're going to do this, make sure you're not going crazy because these are actually only like 14 foot-pounds. So what you're really looking for, and you do have a little bit of room to breathe on this. A lot of the lobe will stay the same. What you're looking for is the direction of the valve. It goes like this. So what you want is to make sure that the top of the lobe is directly pointing up, directly in line with the valve. And then what you're going to measure is the distance between the base of the lobe and the top. So we'll go based off this. So the intake side, you want 0, 0, 8, we'll say, and then this is actually the exhaust, so I should do that the right way. And then you'll have another sheet that's just, that'll be intake, right? And we'll say that one's 0.006 thousandths. Just make sure if you're doing this, you're looking at the exact measurements that it's requiring. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna take your feeler gauge and you're gonna aim for this number. You want this number. So you're gonna go for 8 thousandths. So right here, you got 8 thousandths. This is the feeler gauge that you want to be able to fit in there good. So you're gonna take this and you're gonna slide it in there. And for this one, it's way too tight. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna go smaller and smaller until you find one that fits. And this is where the repetitive motion of this comes from. So we're gonna go, that one felt really, really tight. So we're gonna drop down to 3 thousandths just to try to get a big jump. Okay, so we're gonna slide this in there, and 3 thousandths does go through relatively easy. So then we're gonna take it a step up. We're gonna go, we'll try 6 thousandths. We'll do 6 thousandths. Slide 6 thousandths on there. 6 thousandths slides exactly perfect. Now, if I'm correct, I do believe the exhaust side is actually 6 thousandths and the intake side is 8 thousandths. So this would actually be exactly perfect. This is what you would want. This one I would consider done. So we've got 6 thousandths, and then there is a rule of thumb that you can go plus and minus 2 thousandths on these in order to get them. But I do get them exactly perfect. I try to, at least. But in this scenario, let's go ahead and pretend that this is an 8 thousandths. And so you can't get 8 thousandths to fit in there. So now you need to gain 2 thousandths of space. And so in order to do that, you need to remove 2 thousandths off the bucket to get that 2 thousandths of space. So you're gonna shave a little bit off so the bucket falls a little bit lower so you can gain space between the bottom of the lobe and the top of the bucket. And in order to do that, you will trim just a little bit off. And I got this finger grinder here, and I specifically bought it just for this process. And for those of you guys that want to hit me with the "that's not correct, it's never going to work," this car makes 1,000 horsepower and it has been running for 4 years now, and it's an aluminum rod engine, so I don't really want to hear that. Multiple ways to get to things. Like I said, another way to do this is you pull all the springs out, you drop the valves, and you shave a little bit of the top of the valve off. That's no different than shaving a little bit of the top of this off. Obviously, you don't want to come in here and go crazy with that. You want to make sure you're doing it in a nice smooth pattern. You don't want it to be all messed up and, you know, basically sloped anywhere inside there. You want it to be flat. I will show you how we do that. This bucket here, you want to subtract 2 thousandths. So you'll do minus 0.002. And then what you're going to aim for now is 0.2125. So we're going to take 2 thousandths off. You're subtracting the 2 from here. So that's what you're going to aim for. You're going to shave that much off there. You're going to do slightly. You're going to do a little bit at a time, pull it off, take a measurement, do a little bit at a time, pull it off, take a measurement, then put it back in there and check it again. So let's go ahead, pull these all off here real quick. And then take your bucket out. If you can't get your bucket, because it's kind of stuck in there, suctioned in there, little magnet's always good. Pull it right out with the magnet. So now, what you're gonna do, turn this bad boy on. You can see it really doesn't take that much. It's gonna take a little bit more than this. All I did was scratch it basically. So you're gonna take, if you're just starting out on this and you don't really know how much it's taken off, just go little bits at a time. You don't want to take too much off. It's easy to fix something that doesn't have enough taken off, but if you take too much off, you can't really fix that, and you gotta hope that you can use it for another one of those sometime down the road doing this process. You see, I took just the surface off of that. I spun it in circles, get a nice even grind. You see that? I only took 1 thousandths off of that. Only 1 thousandths. So now we're going to take it back out, and we're going to do it one more time, and we're going to take a test. And we're going to take the measurement again. Like I said, it does not take much. It does not take much at all. You definitely want to make sure that you clean these up. Clean them before you go put them back inside the head, because there is metal dust in this. It's common sense. You don't want to send that guy back in there all gross. Another thing is you want to clean it so that way you're not getting false readings. So we grinded it one more time. I'm going to take it all the way down. And there we go. That's extremely close. That last number is so tiny, you could probably get a little bit out of it. See, like, we got that number. We're basically borderline there. The 0.212 is really what you want to get, but that last number, you can get it really, really close. So now this one is set. So I've done cleaned it. We're going to set it back in there. And we're going to put the cam back in. Okay, so now here we go again. We're going to pull out that 8 thousandths that we were shooting for. There we go. So the 8 thousandths fits. So that's what you want. And that's how you set your solid buckets. It's super, super easy. You just absolutely want to make sure that you're double, triple, quadruple checking your work. You don't want to get this all together and then have to take it all apart again, because this is probably the most time-consuming portion of valve train, especially when you're switching to something like this. But there it is, guys. That is the process of doing solid buckets in your JZ. It's a very simple procedure. It's super, super simple if this is the way that you want to do it. But if you guys are curious about this working, like I said, the Supra has the same process in it, and this car is the fastest car I've ever owned. And I built it a long time ago, and it's got the same situation. As long as you do the procedure the correct way, make sure you're not getting crazy with it, don't take too much off, you can go to the junkyard and get these super, super cheap. If you have any questions, let me know down below, and I will be sure to respond to you right away. I'm always here to help. I'm always happy to help. And yeah, keep building, save yourself some money. These things work, and I'm proof of that. If you guys freaking like this video, hit the like button. If it helped you at all, hit the red button, subscribe to the channel. I'm trying to hit 20,000 subs, hopefully, before the end of the year. That'd be crazy. And yeah, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Later.